The NHL trade rumor mill has been running wild lately with Rasmus Andersson at the top of the block. Many different people have shared their perspectives on the matter, like Elliotte Friedman, but now we have our beloved Eric Francis entering the mix with a major Flames trade update. He claims that Rasmus Andersson will be traded, and there may be some validity to this claim. We're going to dive into all that and more, but first I want to welcome you to Flames Digest. I am Mark Griffith. If you're new around here and you love the Flames, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest news, updates, reports, and rumors revolving around your Calgary Flames. We would love to welcome you to the Flames Digest family. We have a lot to unpack, so let's dive straight in and talk about how Francis speaks out, of course, talking about Eric Francis of Sportsnet. He has got a lot to say on the Rasmus Andersson kind of trade rumor saga. And honestly, if you're a fan of the channel, you come here maybe a couple times a week sort of thing, or maybe you watch every single video, strap in because the Rasmus Andersson trade rumor saga is going to be wild. It's going to be even longer and better and bigger than the Jacob Markstrom one was. And that seemed like it was never going to end. But Rasmus Andersson, until he does get traded, whether that's, in the couple weeks left this offseason or this upcoming trade deadline or the next offseason or the next trade deadline after that, we are going to have it all. I have a feeling there's going to be lots of updates, but let's obviously start with the present and talk about this article a little bit here. So Eric Francis says that Rasmus Andersson will be traded either this trade deadline or next. We're going to look a little bit at an article here from Kareem Kurji, but obviously most of what is said in this video will be coming straight out of the mouth of Eric Francis. But let's do a little bit of an intro here. On an episode of Flames Talk last week, Francis was on with Pat Steinberg, and the topic of discussion was Andersson's future in Calgary. It is a hot topic right now. A lot of people want to know what's going on with Big Raz. As one of the last remaining players from the Johnny Gaudreau era of Flames hockey, and with Andersson being a younger veteran with just 2 years left on his contract, his future has been at the forefront of offseason conversations this year. And it truly has been. We've been talking about it loads ever since Markstrom and Mangiapane got traded. Next on the block is Rasmus Andersson, and again, we're going to be talking about it. But let's see what Eric Francis kind of had to say on the matter. Let's get into a quote from him to start things off. So he said, "Andersson will be traded." Boom! There it is right there. I mean, we don't even need to say any more. Just that one sentence is good enough, but obviously we'll go a little further in. Andersson will be traded. The only question is it this trade deadline? I think it will be, because I think that the team will be clearly out of a playoff race at that point in time and will be time to cash in big time. It will be time to cash in big time, I should say. And honestly, he might be onto something a little bit there. Just saying, I think we all kind of assume Andersson will be traded. There's a lot of people who think, who knows, maybe he will want to re-sign, stay in Calgary, be in that window of contention, but Andersson will be traded. You heard it from Eric Francis. Let's continue. I'm not at all convinced that Rasmus Andersson would want to stay in Calgary long term. That comes from Francis again, obviously talking about Andersson there. And, it's always a hot topic when someone's coming towards the end of their contract. Are they going to re-sign in Calgary? Are they going to not? I swear this happens with this franchise more than any other you hear about in the NHL, because it just seems like so many players don't want to be here. But either way, very interesting. So Francis says Andersson will be traded and will not want to stay in Calgary long term, thus meaning he will not re-sign when his contract is done after 2 seasons from now, but he could be traded before that. Now, Francis, obviously, he knows his hockey. He knows his Calgary Flames. But one thing we need to discuss is there some validity to what he is saying here? And honestly, there's probably a little bit more than you think. Now, whatever your opinion is on Eric Francis, I'm sure it's valid. That's totally fine. You can think he's a knucklehead and he just, spews out nonsense out of his mouth. Or you can think, hey, this guy really does know his stuff. He's been on to a lot of good stuff lately, has been reporting properly. Whatever you think, try and take this with a clean slate. Think of this from a non-biased perspective and just think that Francis has been right lately. And this once again comes from the previous article. So take Francis's comments as you will, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of sense to what he's saying. I know a lot of people think that's a good change, but either way, Andersson is 27 years old with 2 years left on a very good contract with a $4.75 million AAV. It's super easy for teams to absorb that full hit, and 31 other teams in the NHL would jump at the chance to add him. Might be a bit of a stretch, but it's true. He's a heart and soul player, played almost 24 minutes a night last season, easily slots in on the first pair and potentially even the first power play, and is extremely reliable at both ends of the ice usually. It's so true. He's a very, dependable player. We can rely on him. He has a great offensive upside to his game that, was slightly lacking last year. The numbers honestly weren't too bad, but we know he has tons of offensive upside. He's great defensively. He can do it in the special teams 5-on-5. He can do it all. He's very, very valuable, and it makes sense for the Flames to want to try and trade him. If they do, of course, that's, getting rid of another good player, totally solidifying a rebuild, and maybe not leaving some people in the best situation, but either way, very, very interesting here. Now, if we get one more little quote here, fans will remember how passionate Francis was about Gaudreau's future in Calgary and how he would never sign long-term with the Flames. Francis, the whole time, was saying there's no chance Johnny Hockey is signing here. Why is this even a debate kind of thing? That was heavily criticized for years, but in the end, Francis ended up being right. As much as it sucked, he was right, and Johnny Gaudreau did leave. Lately, he's been right about a lot of things and has really cemented himself as one of the premier Calgary Flames insiders out there. This article is just starting to glaze Francis, but either way, he has been right previously. Does that mean he'll be right about this one? I mean, it's not like it's the most bold claim ever. I mean, he does say he will be traded, but either way, very interesting here. But let's let the man himself do a little bit more talking. So let's get into some more Eric Francis quotes from that same episode of Flames Talk. So he said, so many other veterans last year, many of them fellow Swedes, decided they didn't want to be part of this rebuild. If things go sideways the first couple months, that frustration might get pretty old pretty quick. So again, this is Eric Francis kind of putting a scenario where Andersson would be traded and kind of why. So he says, a lot of veterans did want to leave, or the Flames wanted veterans to leave. And you think of many of them fellow Swedes. Of course, Elias Lindholm made it pretty clear he wanted to be traded. So it's very interesting. He used to have a great core group of players, and Rasmus Andersson doesn't have that anymore. I know we had a comment the other day that said that his best pal and roomie Mangiapane got traded. There's another guy gone, so kind of losing all of his homeboys. But let's continue here. So after a couple months, I wouldn't be surprised if Raz went to management and said, I'm not sure I can do this any longer. I know you're going to trade me next year. Why don't you trade me this year? Wowza. That's the way I kind of see it happening. Eric Francis wrapped up with that. And it is absolutely nuts. I mean, could this situation happen? Of course. Is it going to happen exactly like that? I'm not too sure. But let's wrap up this whole situation with another quote from the article here. Like with their other former core players on expiring or soon to be expiring contracts, the Flames will have to figure out exactly what Andersson is thinking about his future. If he's not willing to stick it out during the rebuild, then perhaps the trigger needs to be pulled on a trade sooner rather than later. And that just honestly is the fact of the matter, whether that comes from Eric Francis or anyone. I know Elliotte Friedman kind of said that the Flames are willing to stick with Andersson. It's more up to Andersson if he wants to sign here or be traded. There's different reports flying around, of course, but either way, it was nice to see Eric Francis over the summer have something to say about the Flames and for us to talk about it. But let me know, do you think Rasmus Andersson will be traded, and do you think it will be sooner rather than later? If so, when? Let's wrap up this video with the comment of the day, as we love to do here on the channel. And this one has to do with yesterday's video about Matt Coronado, of course. Good to talk about him, too. Haven't talked about him in a while. But we had one from good old Tater Nuts, of course. And he said he will definitely make the club out of camp. But look, he's only 21 years old. It's going to take a few more years, fellas, before he makes a serious contribution. Just be patient, guys and gals. He's going to be a good one. And that is true. I mean, I even said it myself in the video yesterday. Coronado's development isn't as far along as we'd hoped. Kind of the same with Dustin Wolf. They've been great in the AHL. Why isn't it translating to the NHL as much? He still is very, very young, and he has time, which is exactly where his mind is at. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you like what you saw here today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.